Have you ever thought that a single phone call could turn your entire world upside down? That morning, my son rang me, his voice as cold as a winter's night. Mom, the seaside cottage and the car have been sold. We're leaving tomorrow. I stood frozen, my hand trembling around the phone. What on earth was happening to my family? I was in my modest kitchen, the faint aroma of morning coffee still lingering on my tongue. Pale sunlight slipped through the curtains, catching the family photo on the dining table, the last remnant of days when we were all together, laughing as one. Today was my 62nd birthday. I'd waited, as I do every year, for a call from my children, but the phone had stayed silent all day, save for the steady tick-tock of the wall clock, a cruel reminder that time waits for no one, not even a mother like me. I cradled my coffee mug, its warmth prickling my palms. This little house, humble as it is, was where I poured my sweat and tears to keep things together after my husband passed a decade ago. The seaside cottage in Cornwall, my pride and joy, bought with a lifetime of savings, was my dream for family gatherings, filled with laughter by the waves, like the old days. But now, my children have their own lives. My eldest, James, is married with kids, and my youngest, Emily, is caught up in her career in London. They rarely visit, and I've grown used to the quiet. Still, today, I held on to a flicker of hope. Just one call would have warmed my heart. The phone buzzed as I was rinsing my mug. James's name flashed on the screen. I smiled, wiping my hands on my apron, relief washing over me. He's remembered my birthday, I told myself, though deep down, I knew James wasn't one for sentimental dates. I answered, forcing a cheerful tone. Hello, James. Love. It's been ages since you rang your mom. His voice came through, flat and devoid of warmth. Mom, I'm calling to let you know. The seaside cottage and the car they're sold. We've sorted the paperwork. We're off tomorrow. I froze. The mug on the table blurred before my eyes. My heart pounded, threatening to burst from my chest. Sold? Sold what? What are you on about? James, I stammered, my voice cracking. The cottage and your car. We needed the money for things abroad. Don't worry. We'll sort you out later. His tone was mechanical, like he was reading a script, not a hint of apology, not a trace of hesitation. James, how could you sell them? That cottage is mine. The deeds are in my name. I was nearly shouting now, my grip on the phone so tight it hurt. Sorry. Mom, it's done. I'll explain later. And with that, he hung up. The cold beep of the line cut through me like a knife. I collapsed into a chair, my mind spinning. The seaside cottage where I'd taken the kids for summer holidays, where my husband promised we'd grow old together, sold. The car, bought so I could visit my grandchildren, gone. How could James do this? The deeds were locked in the safe in my bedroom. How did he get them? I stumbled to my feet, legs shaky, and made my way to the safe. The musty smell of the old wardrobe hit me as I opened it. Inside, where the deed should have been, there was nothing but a stack of blank papers. My heart clenched, as if squeezed by an invisible hand. I tore through drawers, desperate for a clue. A sign, nothing, only a small scrap of paper. In James's handwriting, Mum, I'm sorry. I clutched the note, my hand shaking so much it slipped to the floor. Betrayal surged through me, bitter as poison. James, the boy I'd nursed through fevers, for whom I'd scrimped and saved to put through university, had he turned his back on me? And Emily, my youngest, who always said she loved me, did she know about this? I sank to the floor, leaning against the wall. The house was eerily silent, save for the echo of waves from memories of Cornwall. I could still see James as a boy, chasing me across the sand, his laughter ringing out. Now, that laughter felt like a lie. I reached for the phone to call him back, but stopped, my finger hovering over the screen. What was the point? To hear more lies, to face the truth that my children had changed, and I was no longer the mother they needed. Then, a faint whisper drifted from the living room. Hushed voices, cautious, as if afraid of being overheard. I stood, tiptoeing to the door. Through the crack, I saw Emily, my youngest, on her phone. Her voice was low, but I caught every word. James, are you sure? If Mum finds out everything, she'll never forgive us. My heart stopped. Emily knew she was part of this. I wanted to burst in, to scream, to demand why my own children would treat me like this, but my feet were rooted to the spot. I stood there, listening. As my heart shattered into pieces, something bigger was at play, a secret I didn't yet understand. and I knew I had to uncover the truth before everything fell apart completely. So, before you settle in, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you're enjoying what I'm sharing here. I stood in the living room, the soft glow of the table lamp casting shadows over the weathered family photo on the wooden shelf. It was taken 15 years ago, when James was just 20, Emily barely in secondary school, and my husband was still with us. We were on the beach in Cornwall, hair tousled by the wind, smiles as bright as the summer sun. I brushed my fingers over the frame, the cool glass sending a shiver through me. The seaside cottage, my life's labor, had been sold. James's words echoed in my mind. The cottage and car are gone. We're leaving tomorrow. But what cut deeper was Emily's whispered warning. If Mom finds out everything, she'll never forgive us. I sank into the armchair, the familiar musty scent of its cushions pulling me back to days long gone. I could still feel the sting of every bead of sweat, every sleepless night working extra shifts, all to save for that small plot of land by the sea. My husband used to hold my hand, his smile gentle as he said, "We'll grow old there, won't we? Love." Just the sound of the waves, nothing more needed. He passed before that dream came true, leaving me with 2 children and a promise to keep. I did everything for James and Emily, to give them a place to call home, a refuge to return to. And now, they'd sold it off like it was nothing more than a trinket. I closed my eyes, trying to swallow the bitter lump in my throat. The sound of waves from memory surged back, mingling with the relentless tick-tock of the wall clock. I could see those afternoons at the cottage. James as a boy, chasing the tide and shrieking when the cold water splashed him. Emily would sit on the sand, meticulously crafting castles, grumbling at her brother for knocking over her masterpieces. I thought those moments were worth any sacrifice. Now, those memories were a sharp blade, slicing through me with every recollection. I rose and drifted to the dining table where my phone lay. The screen still glowed, showing James's ended call. I wanted to ring him back, to scream, to demand why he could betray his own mother, but my hand hovered, thumb frozen over the call button. Instead, I pulled open a drawer and retrieved an old photo album. The scent of yellowed paper hit me, a stark reminder of how much time had passed. I turned the pages slowly, each snapshot a fragment of the past. James on his graduation day, arms wrapped tightly around me. Emily in her school uniform, beaming outside the gates. Those moments felt so real back then. Now, I wasn't sure what to believe. A faint creak from the front door snapped me out of my reverie. Emily stepped inside, carrying a bag of takeaway from the local chippy. The warm, savory aroma filled the air, but it only left me colder. She wore a thin jacket, hair tied high, looking much like the uni student who'd rush home begging for my apple crumble. But her eyes today were different, evasive, hiding something. "Mom, I got you some food," Emily said, her voice strained with forced cheer. She set the bag on the table, avoiding my gaze. "Eat up before it gets cold." I nodded, my throat too dry to speak. Emily sat across from me, pulling out her phone, clearly dodging any real conversation. I watched her, searching for traces of the little girl who'd cling to me, sobbing after a playground spat. But all I saw was a stranger. "Emily," I said, my voice hoarse. "Were you just on the phone with James?" She flinched, nearly dropping her phone. "What?" "Oh, no, just a mate." Her laugh was forced, her eyes darting nervously, scrambling for a cover. I clenched my fist under the table, nails biting into my palms. She was lying. I'd heard her voice, mentioning James in some secret, but I held back, biding my time. Instead, I nodded, feigning belief. "Oh, right. Thought I heard you talking to your brother." Emily gave a weak smile, standing to grab plates. "Nope, not me." "Mum, you're overthinking it." She turned away, but I caught the slight tremble in her shoulders, like she was holding something in. I took the plate of food she handed me, steam rising and stinging my eyes. But I didn't eat. I just watched her every small movement. The way she avoided my gaze, the restless tap of her fingers on the table. It all confirmed she knew. She wasn't innocent. I stepped out onto the small balcony, the night air cool and carrying a faint salty tang, though we were miles from Cornwall. I wrapped my arms around myself, fighting the tears welling up. I thought of our last trip to the cottage. James had promised to bring his son there, to teach him how to fish like I'd taught him. Emily had talked about throwing me a birthday party by the sea, complete with cake and sparklers. Those promises were nothing but dust now. Suddenly, my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Don't trust them. Love." They're hiding something much bigger. My pulse raced. I glanced back at the house, where Emily was still tidying, pretending all was well. Who sent this, and what was the bigger secret they were keeping? I gripped the phone, the world tilting beneath my feet. I stood on the balcony, the night breeze tugging at my hair, but its chill was nothing compared to the storm raging in my chest. The text from the unknown number still glowed on my phone. Don't trust them. Love. They're hiding something much bigger. I read it over and over, each word carving deeper into the suspicion swelling inside me. Who sent this? And what was this bigger secret? Through the glass door, I could see Emily washing dishes in the kitchen, the light casting a serene glow on her face, too serene, unnervingly so. But I knew, behind that calm facade, she and James were concealing something. I stepped back inside, forcing my voice to stay steady. Emily, I'm off to bed. Lock the door properly. All right. Yes, Mom. Sleep well, she replied, not looking up. But I noticed her hand pause, just for a moment, as she dried a plate, as if bracing for a question. I said nothing more, retreating to my room and closing the door. The faint scent of incense from my husband's shrine wafted over, a quiet reminder of the promise I'd made to him to hold this family together, no matter what. But now, I wasn't sure I could keep that vow. In my room, I opened the safe again, hoping for any clue I'd missed. This time, I searched every corner. Tucked beneath a pile of old documents, I found a crumpled envelope. Unmarked, my heart pounded as I tore it open. Inside was a copy of the deed transfer for the seaside cottage, signed by James. What stopped me cold was the date 3 months ago. 3 months. So James had been planning this for ages. Not some spur-of-the-moment decision as he'd claimed. And my signature on the document, clearly forged. I knew my own slanted handwriting, and this was a clumsy imitation. Like a cruel jest, I sank onto the bed, the paper trembling in my hands. The sharp smell of ink hit me, making my head spin. What had James done? How had he got the deeds from the safe? I was always careful, always locked it, and only James and Emily knew the combination. Emily, was she involved? Her whispered words echoed in my mind. If Mom finds out everything, she'll never forgive us. Those words now rang like a warning, sharp and cutting. I stood, resolve hardening. I couldn't let this slide. I needed the truth needed to understand why my children had betrayed me. I opened my laptop, fingers shaking as I typed the password. I'm no tech wizard, but I know my way around emails and old messages. In my inbox, I found an email from James, sent weeks ago, which I'd dismissed as spam, subject paperwork for you to sign. It was brief, asking me to sign some documents for my business. Attached was a PDF I'd never opened. Now, I clicked it, and my heart stopped. It was the contract for the sale of the cottage, complete with my forged signature. I clutched my head, the room spinning around me. James had tricked me into signing, or worse, forged it all himself. But why? Money. Was he so desperate that he'd sell off our family's legacy? And Emily, did she know? Or was she just a reluctant accomplice? I thought of her visits, always with little gifts, sweet words dripping from her lips. Was it all an act to throw me off? I got up, determined to confront Emily. But when I opened the door, she was gone. The kitchen was empty, the plate of chips cold on the table, its once warm aroma now stale. I rang her phone, but it went to voicemail after a few rings. I tried James, nothing. A wave of helplessness crashed over me, like the world had turned its back. I returned to the dining table, picking up the family photo again. James's eyes in the picture, bright with hope, now only brought pain. I remembered working 2 jobs to fund his university, the night sitting by his bedside when he had pneumonia. I'd given everything, and now he'd turned away without a word of explanation. My phone buzzed, snapping me out of my thoughts. Another text from the unknown number. Check your bank account. Love, the money's not gone far. I froze. My bank account. I hadn't even thought of that. Hands trembling, I opened the banking app on my phone. The familiar scent of the old wooden table clung to me as the screen loaded. And then I saw at my savings account. The nest egg for my retirement was empty. Over 50,000 pounds, scraped together over a lifetime, gone. The transaction history showed a single large transfer to an unfamiliar account, dated the same day James signed the sale contract. I collapsed into a chair, breath coming in gasps. Pieces were falling into place, yet the puzzle grew more tangled. James hadn't just sold the cottage and car he'd taken my savings to. But for what? And what was Emily's role in this? I stared out the window, the dim streetlights mocking my naivety. Something bigger, darker, was at play, and I had to uncover it before it was too late. I sat in the dim room, the glow from my phone screen casting light on my face, highlighting the lines I used to proudly call the marks of time. My bank account was empty. The seaside cottage sold, the car my small slice of freedom gone. The mysterious text lingered in my mind. The money's not gone far, but where had it gone? And why would James, the son I'd poured my heart into, do this? Emily, my gentle youngest, was she truly involved? I needed answers, and I knew I couldn't find them alone. The faint scent of incense from my husband's shrine hung in the air, a reminder that I'd once been stronger than this. I stood, grabbed my coat, and resolved not to drown in this pain any longer. I needed someone I could trust, someone who knew my family, who might see the shadows I'd missed. Only one person came to mind: Helen, my best friend from university, who'd been there from the start, watching me build this family from nothing. I rode my old scooter, the only thing James hadn't sold, to Helen's house in a quiet corner of Bristol. The night air carried the faint smell of exhaust and blooming jasmine, stirring memories of evenings when we'd sit at a pavement cafe, dreaming of family and futures. Helen's house was tucked down a narrow lane, the soft glow of her iron gates lamp spilling onto the cobbled path. I knocked, my heart pounding, unsure of what I'd say. I just knew I needed her. Helen opened the door, her silver hair catching the light, her sharp eyes as piercing as ever. Good heavens, Margaret, what brings you here so late? She pulled me inside, her voice thick with concern. The comforting aroma of freshly brewed tea rose from the wooden table, but it couldn't thaw the chill in my heart. I poured out everything: the call from James, the forged documents, the emptied bank account, and Emily's furtive whisper. Helen sat quietly, turning her teacup in her hands, nodding faintly. When I mentioned the text from the unknown number, her brow furrowed. "Any idea who sent it?" she asked, her voice low, each word measured. "No clue," I replied, my voice hoarse with exhaustion. "But I need to find out. James said they're leaving tomorrow. I don't know where, why, or even who they are." Helen stood, retrieving an old notebook from a bookshelf. "Margaret, do you remember Thomas, James's cousin? Used to play with him as kids." I nodded. Thomas, a distant cousin, had been close to James when they were young. But as he grew older, Thomas got tangled in some shady dealings, and I told James to steer clear. "What's Thomas got to do with this?" I asked, a knot of unease tightening in my chest. "I've heard whispers," Helen said, lowering her voice, "that James has been meeting Thomas recently. Someone saw them at a cafe near your place, deep in a heated discussion. I don't want to spread rumors, but if James is behind this, Thomas might be pulling the strings." A surge of anger rushed through me. Thomas, could he have goaded James into this? Or had James got himself caught in something bigger? My nails dug into my palms. "I need to find Thomas," I said, my voice hardening. "But first, I need to know where James is." Helen nodded, pulling out her phone to call a friend in banking. "I'll see if they can trace where your money went. Margaret, keep an eye on James, but be careful. If he's mixed up in something dangerous, you can't face it alone." I agreed, though my mind was a tangled mess. Helen handed me a number for a contact she called a private investigator. "Call him," she urged, "but don't confront James or Emily yet. You need evidence first." That night, I returned home, my head heavy. The house was silent, save for the creak of the ceiling fan. I called the investigator, my voice shaking as I explained everything. He promised to track James and look into Thomas, but it would take time. "Stay calm. Love," he said. "I'll let you know as soon as I have something." I sat at the dining table, opening the family photo again. James's eyes in the picture seemed to mock me now. I recalled his last visit. Months ago, he'd hugged me, saying, "Don't worry, Mom, I'll take care of you." Those words now felt like a bitter jest. I glanced at Emily in the photo, her innocent smile cutting me deeply. What did she know? Why hadn't she told me? My phone buzzed. interrupting my thoughts. A text from the investigator. James is at a hotel in the city center. He's with a man, possibly Thomas. I'll send a photo shortly. My pulse raced. I opened the next message. A blurry photo, but clear enough to recognize James, sitting in the hotel's cafe, facing a man. Though the image was grainy, I knew Thomas's posture, the tilt of his head, the rhythmic tap of his fingers on the table. And on the table, a thick stack of papers, eerily like the sale contract. I shot to my feet, fury burning in my chest. What was James doing with Thomas? Why did they need money so urgently? I wanted to storm over there, confront James, demand why he'd betrayed me. But Helen's warning echoed, be careful. Margaret, if he's caught up in something dangerous, you can't face it alone. I took a deep breath, reining in my anger. I needed more evidence, the full truth, before acting. But as I looked at the photo again, a small detail chilled me on James's hand. Glinting under the cafe's lights was my husband's wedding ring, the one I'd kept in the safe with the deeds. How did he get it? And what lay ahead? I sat in the darkened room, the faint glow of the desk lamp illuminating the photo of James and Thomas in the cafe, the wedding ring. My husband's ring glinted on James's finger, a mocking reminder of his betrayal. How had he got it? I distinctly remembered locking it in the safe with the deeds. The musty scent of the old dining table clung to my every breath, pulling me into a spiral of doubt and pain. James hadn't just sold the cottage and car or drained my savings. He'd taken the most sacred keepsake I had. But why? And what role was Thomas, the cousin I'd once banned from our lives, playing in this? I gripped my phone, my finger hovering over the investigator's number. He'd sent another message. James and the man left the hotel at 10 p.m. They're heading toward Clifton. I'm tailing them. I glanced at the clock nearing midnight. Helplessness surged. But I couldn't just sit there. I needed to act, to understand what James was doing and whether Emily was as deeply entangled as I feared. I threw on my coat, grabbed the scooter keys, and texted Helen, I'm going after James. Don't worry. I'll be careful. Her reply was instant. Margaret, don't do anything rash. Wait for the investigator to confirm their location. But I couldn't wait. Every second felt like a cut to my pride. The pride of a mother who'd sacrificed everything for her children. I rode through Bristol's night streets, neon lights flashing across my face, carrying the damp scent of recent rain and exhaust fumes. Clifton wasn't far, but every corner seemed to stretch time. I pulled up outside a small bar where the investigator said James and Thomas had gone. Thumping electronic music spilled out, mingling with raucous laughter. I stood outside, hesitant, my heart pounding like it might burst. This wasn't my world. But my son was in there, and that hurt more than anything. Through the misty glass door, I spotted James in a corner, facing Thomas. A stack of papers and a bottle of whiskey sat on the table. James nodded, twirling the wedding ring, his father's ring, like it was a toy. Thomas smirked, that same sly grin I'd loathed since he was a boy. I clenched my fists, nails biting into my palms, fighting the urge to storm in and confront them. I texted the investigator, I see them. Should I go in? His reply was swift, don't. I'm recording. They're talking about a big deal. Wait for the audio file. I slipped into a shadowed corner, the night breeze tangling my hair. The smell of spilt beer from the bar mixed with the earthy scent of wet pavement, stirring memories of simpler times. Family trips to the seaside. Now I was a stranger, spying on my own son. My phone buzzed the investigator's audio file. I slipped in my earbuds, hands trembling as I hit play. Thomas's voice came through, smooth and cocksure. What are you fretting about? The paperwork's done. Money's transferred. Get on that plane tomorrow, and no one will find us. James's voice was low but clear. I still don't feel right about this. If Mom finds out, she'll... Thomas cut him off. What's your mom going to do? She's old. Let her live with her memories. If you want to be rich, you've got to play the game. I stopped the recording, feeling like I'd been punched in the chest. James was uneasy, but he was still going through with it. He knew it would break me, yet he chose to continue. And Thomas, was he manipulating my son, or had James willingly stepped into this mess? I was about to march into the bar when a figure appeared from the street's shadows, stopping me cold. It was Emily. She hurried into the bar, her steps quick, like she was searching for someone. My heart clenched. Emily was here too. Did she know everything? I wanted to run after her, pull her out, demand answers, but my feet were rooted. Emily entered and sat beside James. I couldn't hear them, but through the glass, I saw her shake her head, her voice sharp. James reached out, as if to calm her, but she pushed his hand away. Thomas just sat there, smirking, like he was watching a play unfold. My phone buzzed again. The investigator caught some of their talk. They mentioned an overseas property investment. Sounds like James is being pressured, but he's not entirely innocent. Be careful. Margaret, someone else is watching them. I scanned the street, a prickling sense that unseen eyes were on me. The night air grew colder, carrying a whiff of cigarette smoke. I retreated deeper into the shadows, trying to stay calm. James, Emily, Thomas. They were weaving a web I didn't fully grasp. But someone else, an invisible puppet master, was pulling strings. I texted the investigator dig into the investment and who's watching them. Then I returned to my scooter, my heart heavy. As I started the engine, a black car pulled up in front of the bar. A man in a sharp suit stepped out, his stride confident. I couldn't see his face, but the way he glanced at the bar sent a shiver down my spine. Emily suddenly emerged, looking around nervously. Her eyes swept past my hiding spot, and for a moment, I thought she saw me, but she turned, hurrying toward the black car. The man opened the door, and she climbed in. The car sped off, leaving me with a flood of questions. What was Emily doing? Whose side was she on? And what awaited me when I faced the truth? I stood in the shadows, watching the black car carrying Emily vanish into Bristol's flickering streets. The lingering smell of exhaust mingled with the damp promise of rain. My heart pounded, threatening to break free from my chest. Emily, my youngest, whom I'd thought still cared for me, had just climbed into a stranger's car, a man I didn't know. James was inside the bar with Thomas and a stack of mysterious documents, everything I'd built my family. My trust, our memories was crumbling, and I didn't know if I could salvage any of it. I returned home, my mind in chaos. The house was silent, save for the creak of the ceiling fan and the faint incense from my husband's shrine, like a quiet reproach. I sat at the dining table, the family photo still there, James and Emily's faces now unfamiliar. I texted the investigator. Emily got into a car with a man, find out who he is. But I knew waiting wasn't enough. I had to act, to confront my children, no matter how painful the truth. The next morning, I called James and Emily to the house. James agreed instantly, his voice over the phone as cold as ever, like nothing was amiss. Emily hesitated, claiming she was busy. But I was firm. I need to see you both this afternoon. At home, I heard her sigh, but she relented. That afternoon, my small house became a silent battlefield. James arrived first, his shirt crumpled, still wearing his father's wedding ring. The sight of it choked me. Emily came later, her eyes red, as if she'd been crying. The coffee I'd brewed to play the host did nothing to ease the heavy air. The three of us sat around the table, silent, the clocks ticking like a countdown to ruin. Finally, I spoke, forcing my voice to stay calm. James, Emily, I want the truth. The seaside cottage, the car, the money from my account. Why have you done this to me? James met my gaze, his eyes flickering briefly, then looked away, tapping his fingers on the table. Mom, I told you, we needed the money for things abroad. Don't make a fuss. A fuss? I nearly shouted, gripping my coffee mug so tightly it might have shattered. You sold my cottage, took my money, even stole your father's ring. And you call that nothing? Emily bowed her head, hands clasped tightly. Mom, James, he didn't want to, she mumbled. But we had no choice. No choice. I stared at her, my heart tearing apart. Emily, you knew everything, didn't you? You knew what he was doing, and you didn't tell me. Why? She looked up, tears brimming. Mom, I wanted to tell you, but if I did, it'd be worse. Her voice trembled, as if holding a secret too heavy to bear. James cut in, his tone sharp. Emily, stop. He stood, the chair scraping harshly against the floor. Mom, this has nothing to do with her. It was my decision. Blame me. I looked from James to Emily, feeling like they stood on opposite sides of an invisible wall. James, tell me, I said, my voice cold. Where's the money? What are you doing with Thomas? And who was the man last night? James froze, a flash of panic in his eyes. You've been following us. Yes, I said, unflinching. I had to when my own children betrayed me. Now, tell me, everything. The room grew thick, as if we'd all stopped breathing. Emily sobbed, but James stood rigid, lips pressed tight. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and tense. Mom, I didn't want you involved. There are people, dangerous people. If you know, you won't be safe. My blood ran cold. Dangerous people, I echoed, my voice shaking. James, what have you got yourself into? Are you in debt? Are you being forced? He didn't answer, just turned away, fists clenched. Emily buried her face in her hands, shoulders shaking. I wanted to hold her, to say it'd be all right, but I couldn't. Not when my own children had put me in this position. My phone buzzed, breaking the silence. A text from the investigator. The man last night is a property magnate. James and Thomas are tied to a major deal with him. Emily might be trying to protect her brother. Be careful. Margaret, they know you're watching. I stared at James and Emily, my heart racing. They knew I was watching. Who were they? And Emily, was she shielding James or hiding something else? I stood, my voice firm. I'll find the truth, whether you tell me or not. But if you still see me as your mother, speak now, before it's too late. James looked at me, his eyes a mix of pain and anger. Mom, you don't understand. Stay out of this, or you'll lose everything. Then he stormed out, leaving Emily sobbing at the table. I turned to Emily, desperate for answers, but she shook her head, stood, and ran after him. The door slammed, leaving me with an empty house and a searing question. Could I save my children, or had I lost them forever? The door slammed behind James and Emily, leaving me alone in the cold room, the echo of our argument still lingering. The stale scent of cold coffee on the table mingled with the incense from my husband's shrine, a reminder of the life we'd built together. James's words, Mom, you don't understand. Stay out of this, or you'll lose everything, replayed in my mind, sharp as a warning. But I couldn't stop, not when my children were hiding a secret far greater than betrayal. I sat down, hands trembling as I unlocked my phone. The investigator's text glowed on the screen. The man last night is a property magnate. James and Thomas are tied to a major deal with him. Emily might be trying to protect her brother. Be careful. Margaret, they know you're watching. A chill ran through me, as if someone were standing behind me, watching from the shadows. Who were they? And why was Emily, the daughter I'd thought innocent, so deeply entangled? I couldn't wait any longer. I called the investigator, forcing my voice to stay steady. Have you got anything more about the magnate or James's deal? His reply was low. Cautious, Margaret. I've dug up some dirt. The man's Victor Hargreaves, a big player in Bristol's property scene. He's got a history of dodgy deals, money laundering, shady land purchases. James and Thomas are caught up in a project with him, something overseas. The money from your account, the cottage, the car, it's likely gone into that. But something's off. I'm digging deeper. I gripped the phone, nails digging into my palm. And Emily, how's she involved? Emily seems to be trying to stop James, but she knows more than she's letting on. I found messages between her and Hargreaves. She's begging him to spare her brother. I don't have the full picture yet. The ground seemed to collapse beneath me. Emily wasn't just aware she was communicating with this dangerous man. Was she protecting James or being dragged into this mess? I hung up, my head spinning. I needed evidence, something solid to confront my children with, to force the truth out. I rummaged through the dining table drawer, where I kept old papers. The musty smell of yellow documents brought back memories of nights when my husband and I sat here, sorting bills, planning our finances. Buried among them was a small USB drive labeled James Work. I vaguely recalled James leaving it behind months ago, when he'd asked for money to invest in his small business. Back then, I thought he just needed startup cash. Now, I wasn't so sure. I plugged the USB into my laptop, hands shaking as I opened the files. Inside were dozens of documents, contracts, spreadsheets, emails. One file caught my eye, Bali project. I clicked, and my heart stopped. It was a plan for a luxury resort in Bali, with investments running into millions. Among the listed partners were James, Thomas, and Victor Hargreaves. But what floored me was a small note at the bottom: Margaret's assets. Additional collateral. I clutched my head, the world crumbling around me. Not just the cottage, car, and savings. James had planned to use the house I'm living in as collateral. I scrolled through emails, finding a chain between James and Hargreaves. James wrote, "I'll get the money. Just keep your word and leave my sister out of this." Hargreaves replied, "You know the price. Don't test my patience." I could barely breathe. Was James being coerced, or had he willingly jumped into this deal, dragging Emily along? And Emily, was she trying to save her brother, or playing a part to fool me? I opened another file, and this time, something made my blood run cold. a screenshot of messages between Emily and Hargreaves. Emily wrote, "I'll do what you want. Just let James go. He doesn't know how dangerous you are." I stood, knocking over a glass of water. It spilled across the table, blurring the smiles in the family photo. I no longer recognized my children. Emily knew Hargreaves was dangerous, but still hid it from me. James was neck deep in a deal I didn't fully understand, but it was clearly illegal. My phone buzzed, snapping me out of the nightmare. It was Helen. "Margaret, I just heard Thomas has been called in by the police about a money laundering case. It's tied to Hargreaves. You need to be careful. James might be caught in the crossfire." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Helen, I found evidence. James and Emily are tied to a project with Hargreaves. There are messages of Emily begging him to spare James. What do I do?" Helen paused, then said, "Margaret, you have to confront them. But not yet. If Hargreaves knows you're digging, he won't let it slide. Meet me tomorrow morning. I'll take you to someone who can help." I nodded, though she couldn't see. But as I hung up, I heard a faint noise outside, like soft footsteps, then silence. I rushed to the door and flung it open, but there was only darkness and an empty street. A small scrap of paper lay on the ground by the doorstep. I picked it up, my heart pounding. In hurried handwriting, it read, "Stop, or you'll lose both your children." I stared at the note, the world closing in around me. Who left this? Hargreaves, Thomas, or were James and Emily trying to protect me in their twisted way? I clutched the paper, resolve hardening. But as I shut the door, I heard a motorbike roar at the end of the street, and a cold premonition surged within me. Something was coming, and I wasn't ready. The crumpled note in my hand felt like a living threat, or you'll lose both your children. The musty smell of old paper mingled with the damp air of the house, making me feel like I was suffocating. The roar of the motorbike fading down the street echoed in my mind, a warning that my time was running out. I looked at the family photo on the table, James and Emily's faces now strangers. James, tangled in a shady property deal with Victor Hargreaves. Emily, sending desperate messages to that dangerous man to spare her brother. And me, a mother caught on the edge between saving my children and facing a truth that could destroy everything. I shoved the note into my pocket, deciding I couldn't wait until morning to meet Helen. I needed to confront James and Emily now, to hear the truth from their own mouths. I called James, but it rang out to voicemail. Emily didn't answer either. Anger and fear churned, making my heart pound. I texted them both. "Come home now. I know everything. If we don't talk tonight, I'm going to the police." I wasn't sure if I'd actually go to the police, but I needed them to feel the pressure, to understand I was no longer the mother who'd let things slide. I sat at the table, the scent of the old wooden surface clinging to my breaths, conjuring memories of family dinners long gone. Now, it was just me, facing the wreckage of our family alone. The front door creaked, and James stepped in, his face pale, shirt damp with sweat. Emily followed, eyes red and puffy, clutching her bag like she feared someone might snatch it. They looked at me, silent, but the air in the room was thick, almost suffocating. "Sit," I said, my voice cold despite the tremor in my chest. "I want the truth. All of it." James sat, still twirling his father's wedding ring, the ring I'd thought sacred. Emily lingered in the corner, avoiding my gaze. "Mom, I'm sorry," James began, his voice hoarse. "But you don't understand. It's more complicated than you think." Complicated. I cut in, slamming my hand on the table, making the water glass rattle. "You sold my cottage, took my money, even stole your father's ring. You call that complicated? What are you caught up in? James? With Hargreaves? With Thomas?" James bowed his head, lips pressed tight. Emily sobbed, her voice shaking. "Mom, I tried to stop him. I didn't want this, but he was forced. If he didn't do it, they'd—" "Who's they?" I shouted, feeling my blood boil. "Emily, you knew everything, didn't you? You messaged Hargreaves, begging him to spare your brother. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you let me be the fool?" Emily covered her face, shoulders heaving. "Mom, I was scared. I was afraid if I told you, you'd get dragged in. Hargreaves, he's not normal. He knows everything about us, about you, about our house." James interrupted, his voice sharp. "Emily, enough." He turned to me, eyes flashing with pain and anger. "Mom, I did this for the family. You think I wanted to? I'm trapped. Don't you get it? If I don't pay Hargreaves, he won't just take the house. He'll come for Emily. For you. Pay." I froze, the ground slipping beneath me. "You owe him." "How much?" "Why do you owe him?" James went silent, fists clenched. Emily whispered, "James borrowed money for an investment, but it went wrong. Hargreaves said if he didn't pay, he'd..." hurt us all. I just wanted to protect him. Protect you. I looked from James to Emily, the world shattering around me. James borrowed from a property magnate, sold the cottage, the car, drained my savings to pay a debt. And Emily knew, stayed silent, even contacted Hargreaves to save her brother. I wanted to scream, to shake them. But deep down, a different pain surfaced, the pain of a mother who couldn't shield her children. James, I said, my voice trembling, this is your last chance. Tell me everything, or I'll take it all to the police. Who's Hargreaves? What's this project? And why did you take your father's ring? James met my eyes, conflict swirling in his gaze. Finally, he sighed, pulling a sheaf of papers from his bag. Mom, this is the contract. The Bali project, it's not just property. Hargreaves is using it to launder money. I didn't know at first, but when I found out, it was too late. I had to go along, or he'd kill Emily. I took the papers, hands shaking so much I nearly dropped them. The sharp smell of ink hit me, a reminder I was stepping into dangerous territory. And the ring? I asked, voice catching. Why did you take your father's ring? James lowered his head, his voice barely a whisper. Hargreaves wanted something to ensure I wouldn't run. I had nothing else but the ring. My heart broke. The ring, my husband's last keepsake, used as collateral. I looked at James, then Emily, and for the first time, I wondered if I could forgive them. But I knew one thing: I couldn't let Hargreaves win. I couldn't let him destroy my family any further. My phone buzzed, cutting through the tension. It was the investigator, Margaret. I've got evidence Hargreaves is planning to leave the country. He's taking the money. James and Emily might be dragged along. Act now, or you'll lose them both. I looked at my children, pain slicing through me. This was the point of no return. I had to choose: save my children or let them face the consequences of their actions. But as I opened my mouth to speak, a loud crash came from outside like breaking glass. Emily screamed. James bolted to the door, and I knew our time was up. The crash of breaking glass sliced through the air like a knife, startling all three of us. Emily screamed, her voice piercing, while James bolted to the door, fists clenched as if ready to face whatever was out there. I stood frozen, heart pounding, the scent of incense from my husband's shrine clinging to every breath, reminding me I was trapped in a nightmare. The investigator's text still glowed on my phone. Hargreaves is preparing to leave the country. He's taking the money. James and Emily might be dragged along. And now, the noise at the door felt like a sign that my time was up. Stay there, I snapped, my voice trembling but firm, pulling Emily back as she moved to follow James. I stepped toward the door, gripping my phone like a weapon. Through the shattered glass, I glimpsed a figure dart past, swift as a shadow. A brick lay on the porch, a scrap of paper taped to it. I picked it up, hands shaking, and read last warning: stop, or your whole family dies. I crushed the note in my fist, feeling my blood turn to ice. James turned back, panic in his eyes. Mom, who did this? Hargreaves. His voice cracked, and for the first time, I saw raw fear in my son's face. Tell me, I growled, throwing the paper to the ground. Who is Hargreaves? What does he want? And why does he dare threaten me in my own home? Emily buried her face in her hands, sobbing. Mom, I'm so sorry. I told James not to get involved with Hargreaves, but he wouldn't listen. Hargreaves, he knows everything about us. He knows you're digging. James cut in, his voice sharp. Emily, shut up. But then he looked at me, eyes brimming with both anger and despair. Mom, I was trying to protect the family. Hargreaves, he's not someone I could say no to. He's got people everywhere, even in the police. I stared at James, then Emily, feeling the world collapse around me. Hargreaves wasn't just a property magnate. He was a monster with a web of power I couldn't fathom. But I wasn't afraid. No, not quite. I was furious. Furious that my children let this man manipulate them. Furious that they chose secrecy over trusting their mother. James, I said, my voice cold as steel. You think I'm too weak to face Hargreaves? You're wrong. I've lost my cottage, my car, my savings, even your father's ring, but I won't lose you too. Never. James bowed his head, hands trembling, the ring glinting under the lamplight. Emily threw herself into my arms, sobbing. Mom, I didn't want this. I just wanted to save James, to save us. I held her, but my eyes stayed on James. You have one last chance, I said. Where's Hargreaves? And what's he doing with my money? James took a deep breath, as if wrestling with himself. Finally, he spoke. Hargreaves is at a warehouse near Avonmouth Docks. He's transferring the money overseas to an account in Singapore. Your money, it's just a fraction. He's using the Bali project to launder cash. And I I got pulled in because I owed him from a failed investment. It felt like a punch to the chest. My money, my life's work, just a fraction in Hargreaves' game. And James, the son I'd been so proud of, now a pawn in his hands. I wanted to scream, to shake him, but I held back. I needed to stay calm, to save my children before it was too late. My phone buzzed. It was the investigator, Margaret. I've confirmed Hargreaves' location, Avonmouth Docks, like James said. But there's a problem, he's got security, and I've spotted strangers watching your house. Be careful. They could move any moment. I glanced at the door, where the broken glass glinted under the streetlight. The night breeze carried a faint, salty tang, a cruel echo of the lost seaside cottage. I turned to James and Emily, my voice firm. You're coming with me. We'll face Hargreaves, but not alone. I'm calling Helen and the investigator. But first, you both promised me no more secrets. James nodded, his eyes heavy with regret. Emily clutched my hand, her voice trembling. Mom, I promise. I don't want to lose you. But as we prepared to leave, my phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Don't go to Avonmouth, or not only your kids, but you'll disappear too. Attached was a photo, James and Emily, taken from a distance, inside my house. Just minutes ago, I stared at my children, heart racing. Hargreaves knew what we were doing. He was watching, closer than I thought. I gripped James and Emily's hands, feeling like I was clinging to the last remnants of my family. But as I opened my mouth to speak, headlights flashed outside, and the roar of an engine shattered the night silence. Someone was coming, and I knew our fight was only beginning. The headlights flashed through the window, slicing through the quiet night. The roar of an engine like a menacing growl. I gripped James and Emily's hands, my heart pounding. The crumpled note, "Don't go to Avonmouth," burning in my pocket. The scent of incense from my husband's shrine mingled with the damp air of an approaching storm, making it feel like the world was closing in. James stood in front of me and Emily, eyes sharp with vigilance. But his trembling hands betrayed his fear as he clutched his phone. Emily pressed close, her breaths quick and shallow, like a frightened child. But there was no time for comfort. Someone was coming, and this was no friendly visit. "Mom, get inside," James whispered, his voice hoarse. "I'll handle this." "Handle it," I snapped. Low but sharp. "You've handled enough." "James, this time, it's me." I pushed him back, stepping toward the door, though my legs shook beneath me. Through the shattered glass, I saw a black car parked outside, its headlights blinding me. A tall man in a dark suit stepped out, his face cloaked in shadow. But I didn't need to see him to know it was Victor Hargreaves. I opened the door, standing tall despite the fear tearing at my chest. "What do you want?" I demanded, my voice firm. "This is my home. You have no right here." Hargreaves stepped forward, his smirk catching the streetlight. The sharp scent of his expensive cologne hit me, reminding me of the men who'd once promised my husband wealth, only to set traps. "Margaret," he said, his voice smooth as venom, "you're cleverer than I gave you credit for, but you're playing a dangerous game. I warned you, didn't I?" James rushed forward, blocking me. "Hargreaves, this is between you and me. Leave my mum out of it." Hargreaves sneered, hands in his pockets, as if he owned the world. "You brought her into this." "James, not me. You took her money, sold her house. I'm just collecting my dues." Emily sobbed, her voice breaking. "Mum, I'm sorry." I tried to stop James, but he threatened to kill us if we didn't do what he wanted. I looked from Hargreaves to my children, my heart splitting in two. James had been wrong. Emily had hidden the truth. But now I saw the puppet master behind it all. I took a deep breath, my voice ice cold. "Hargreaves, I don't know who you think you are, but I won't let you destroy my family. You've taken my cottage, my car, my money, my husband's ring. What more do you want?" He tilted his head, his eyes glinting like a predator's. "You want your son safe. Simple. Sign over this house, and I'll let him walk. Otherwise, he won't see tomorrow." James shouted, "Mum, don't listen to him. I'll fix this." But I saw the fear in his eyes, the fear of a son who'd gone too far with no way back. I turned back into the house, grabbed the papers from James's USB, and threw them at Hargreaves's feet. "This is proof you're laundering money through the Bali project. I've sent copies to a friend. If anything happens to me or my children, the police will know who to look for." Hargreaves froze, his smirk vanishing. He glanced at me, then James, then Emily, as if weighing his next move. Finally, he gave a dry laugh and turned back to his car. "You're brave, Margaret, but you've just made the biggest mistake of your life." He climbed in, and the black car sped off, leaving me with my children in a house full of broken glass. 3 months later, everything had changed. James and Emily no longer lived with me. James moved to Exeter, working for a small company, trying to rebuild his life after cutting ties with Hargreaves. Emily stayed in Bristol but rarely visited. She said she needed time to fix her mistakes. I didn't know if it was shame or if she was still hiding something. My small house was quieter than ever. The scent of incense from the shrine lingered each evening, but now it carried a different sadness. The grief of a mother who'd fought but couldn't keep her family as it was. Hargreaves had vanished, taking the money he'd laundered through the Bali project. The investigator said the police were on his trail, but I knew men like Hargreaves didn't face justice easily. I looked at the family photo on the table, James and Emily's eyes a reminder of what I'd lost and what I'd saved. I'd pulled my children from Hargreaves's grasp, but the cost was cracks in our family that might never heal. Each night, I sat in the armchair, listening to the ceiling fans creak, wondering if I'd done the right thing. I was strong, but wounded. A mother, but a human with limits. My phone buzzed. A text from Emily, Mum. I'm sorry. I'll come see you soon. I love you. I read it, tears rolling down my cheeks. Maybe there was still hope. But as I glanced at the door, where the broken glass had been replaced, I heard a motorbike pause at the end of the street. A cold premonition surged Hargreaves wasn't done with us, and this story was far from over. 3 months after the confrontation with Victor Hargreaves, my house still bore the scars of that night of shattered glass. The fresh paint on the repaired doorframe mingled with the incense from my husband's shrine, creating a sense of both familiarity and estrangement. I sat in the armchair, clutching a cold cup of tea, staring at the family photo on the table. James and Emily's smiles felt like a distant memory, clouded by secrets and betrayal. Emily's text, Mum, I'm sorry. I'll come see you soon. I love you sat unanswered in my phone. But she hadn't come. James, in Exeter, called occasionally, but our conversations were brief, awkward, as if we were both skirting around an unhealed wound. I stood and stepped onto the balcony, where the morning breeze carried the scent of jasmine from the nearby lane. Bristol hummed with life, but I felt like an outsider, trapped between past and present. Hargreaves had vanished, taking the money he'd laundered through the Bali project. The investigator said the police were still after him. But I held little hope for a man like Hargreaves. What I wanted most, the truth from James and Emily. Our family reunited remained out of reach, like a bridge broken halfway, impossible to cross. Today, I decided to do what I'd put off too long, meet Emily. She texted that she was at a small cafe in the city center, and I needed to face her, to understand why she kept her distance. I wore my favorite dress, the one I'd worn to James's wedding, as a reminder that I was still their mother, still entitled to fight for what was left of our family. Stepping into the cafe, the rich aroma of roasted coffee hit me, blending with soft music and the murmur of patrons. Emily sat in a corner, in a white blouse, hair tied low, looking exhausted but forcing a smile when she saw me. Mum, she said, standing, her voice hesitant. I'm sorry I haven't come sooner. I sat, clutching my bag, keeping my voice steady. Emily, I don't want apologies anymore. I want to know why you're still hiding things. What do you know about Hargreaves? About James? And why haven't you come home? Emily lowered her head, fingers tapping the table, a nervous habit I recognized from her childhood. Mum, I'm not hiding anything. I'm just scared. Hargreaves is still out there. He knows I talked to you. Tried to stop James. He texted me, said if I see you too often, he'll come after you. I froze, feeling like I'd been punched. He texted you when my nails dug into my palms, trying to contain the rising anger. A month ago, she whispered, eyes brimming with tears. I didn't tell you because I was afraid you'd go after him again. Like before. Mom, I don't want you in danger. I stared at her, my heart aching. She was trying to protect me. But by pushing me away, I wanted to hold her, to say I was strong enough to face Hargreaves. But I saw real fear in her eyes. Emily, I said, softer now. I'm not weak. I've lost too much my cottage, my car, my savings, even my trust in you and James. But I won't lose you. You have to trust me. Emily nodded, tears streaming down her face. Mom, I promise I won't hide anything anymore. But James, he's still not okay. He called me, said he's trying to pay off Hargreaves. But I'm scared he'll do something reckless again. My chest tightened, as if a stone were pressing down. James was still entangled with Hargreaves. After everything, he was still sinking deeper. Emily, I said, my voice firm. I'm calling James home. We'll sort this out together, as a family. But you have to promise no contacting Hargreaves, no doing anything without telling me. Emily nodded, wiping her eyes. Yes. Mom, I promise. Our meeting ended with a hug, but I felt the awkwardness in her embrace. The bridge between us was being rebuilt, but it was fragile, ready to snap. As I left the cafe, the scent of coffee clung to my dress, but my heart was heavy. I called James, and this time, he answered. Mom, his voice was weary, like he hadn't slept in days. I'm sorry. I'm trying, but it's harder than I thought. James, I cut in, my tone sharp. Come home. I'm done with excuses. If you still see me as your mother, come home now. He was silent for a moment, then said, Okay, Mom, I'll come. But Hargreaves knows where I am. I'm scared if I come back. He'll come for you. I gripped the phone, anger burning in my chest. Hargreaves was still the shadow haunting my family, even in hiding. I'll deal with Hargreaves, I said. But you need to come home. I won't lose you again. Hanging up. I stood in Bristol's bustling streets, the blare of horns and smell of exhaust overwhelming me. I called Helen, telling her everything. She was quiet for a moment, then said, Margaret, I know someone in the police. I'll get them to look into Hargreaves. But you need to prepare. If he knows you're still after him, he'll hit back. I nodded, though she couldn't see. As I returned home, rain began to fall, pattering on the roof like a warning. I looked at the family photo, and for the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. James and Emily were trying to come back, even if in small steps. But as I opened the door, a white envelope lay on the doorstep. No name. Inside was a single line, Margaret, last chance. Leave Bristol, or no one in your family survives. I clutched the envelope, heart racing. Hargreaves was closer than I thought, and he wasn't stopping. But neither was I. The bridge between me and my children might be half broken, but I wouldn't let it collapse completely. I stood at the front door, the white envelope trembling in my hand. Its threatening words, Margaret, last chance, leave Bristol, or no one in your family survives, etched into my mind. The drizzle fell, carrying the scent of wet earth and Bristol's urban hum, soaking into my clothes as if to remind me I was standing on a final precipice. The faint incense from my husband's shrine lingered inside, mingling with the patter of rain on the roof, weaving a melancholic tune. The family photo on the dining table stared at me, James and Emily's eyes posing a silent question. Was everything I'd done worth it? I tucked the envelope into my pocket and shut the door, my heart pounding but no longer trembling. Victor Hargreaves might be a monster, but I was a mother, and I'd learned that a mother's love could be stronger than any threat. James had promised to come home. Emily was beginning to open up. But our family wasn't what it once was. The cracks had formed, and no matter how hard I tried to mend them, they'd always be part of our story. The next morning, James returned. He stepped into the house, thinner, eyes shadowed, as if his months in Exeter had drained him. Emily followed, in a white blouse, hair tied high, her gaze still heavy with worry. The three of us sat around the dining table, like old times, but no one spoke. The coffee I'd brewed sat untouched, its aroma fading. The clock's ticking counted down, a reminder that time didn't wait for forgiveness. Finally, I spoke, my voice soft but resolute, James. Emily, I don't want to rehash what happened. I just need to know, do you want to fix this? Do you want our family back? James looked at me, twirling his father's wedding ring, the one I'd reclaimed after that night with Hargreaves. Mom, he said, voice hoarse. I messed up. I thought I could handle it. But I only made things worse. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Emily took my hand, tears streaming down her face. Mom, I was wrong too. I was scared of Hargreaves, scared of losing James. But I shouldn't have hidden things from you. I just wanted to keep our family together. I looked at them, my heart aching yet warm. They'd been wrong, betrayed me, but they were still my children. I took a deep breath. Keeping my voice steady, I can't promise I'll forgive you right away. But I promise I won't abandon you. Hargreaves is still out there, and I won't let him win. From now on, we're honest. No secrets. No lies. James nodded, eyes red. Emily hugged me, sobbing like a child. For the first time in months, I felt a spark of hope. Not a perfect reunion, but a fragile new beginning. Helen called that afternoon, saying her police contact had found a lead on Hargreaves. He was hiding in Ireland, but the authorities were working to track him down. Margaret, she said, her tone serious. Be careful. Hargreaves isn't the type to give up, but I know you're strong enough to protect your family. I nodded, though she couldn't see. Hanging up, I looked around the house, the small home I'd once thought I'd lose to Hargreaves. It wasn't the seaside cottage of my dreams, but it was still a place where my children and I could start anew. I picked up the family photo, wiping dust from the frame. James and Emily smiled brightly in it. And I wondered, could we find those smiles again? That night, I sat in the armchair, listening to the steady rain. I thought about this journey, the pain of learning. James sold the cottage, Emily's betrayal, the nights I thought I'd lost everything. Was it worth it? I didn't have a clear answer. I'd saved my children from Hargreaves, but the cost was scars that would never fade. Our family wasn't the perfect picture I'd once dreamed of, but a patchwork of imperfect pieces, yet still mine. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, Margaret. I'm not done. We'll meet again. My heart raced, but I wasn't afraid. I texted back. One line, Hargreaves. I'm ready. I set the phone down, gazing out at the rain. The future was a question mark, but I knew one thing. I wouldn't let Hargreaves or anyone take what remained within me. My love for my children, and the strength of a mother. This story wasn't over, but this time, I'd write the ending. So, before you settle in, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you're enjoying what I'm sharing here.